Hey guys, Gio here. Welcome to Giocast 27. A couple of Geocasts ago, I think it was 25, I was talking about um, just being in a hard space. Just so many people reached out, and so it was one of the best ones yet. And I think it's when we really share vulnerably from the heart without fear that people connect with us. People realize that, hey, we have a lot more in common. And the one thing I really want to say in this episode is, you are not alone. You are not alone. I'm not alone. And there's many other people out there that feel similar, especially nowadays with this cancel culture and all this fear of speaking up because other people are going to judge you. You might say the wrong thing. Because the media, it's actually calling us in a way to really dig down deep and find our truth and being able to share it in a way that is more connecting than disconnecting. That can find that fine line in between, to find that thread of love, to ultimately find inner peace, you know, to find that inner peace. And so I'm not sure exactly where we left off, but it's been an interesting couple of weeks. I've been feeling, end of the summer, still kind of in that uncertainty feeling, which presents itself like a bit of underlying anxiety um, and just uncertainty of like, what should I be doing? Where should I be focusing my energy? I've been reading a book. 10x is easier than 2x. Still listening to some of the Gene Key stuff, which I highly recommend. But I've been talking to a lot of people since the last podcast. They're feeling similar. Like they're feeling pushed, like something's coming up in a way that is getting them to challenge their own beliefs, question themselves. I went through this, feeling like an imposter, feeling like I'm not good enough, comparing myself to everyone in the industry, whether it's breath work, whether it's other people doing similar things, and just feeling like I'm not good enough, like, or maybe I need to be better, or I need to do more in order to be okay. And these were, a lot of them were not true. Most of it was not true. And it was because I was trying to be someone other than myself, or thinking that in order to feel that I had to be someone other than myself. But the truth of it is that the whole process is to be finding out more and more of who we truly are, finding what that true essence within us is, and not trying to be like everyone else, not trying to go for that grind. And that obviously, synchronistically, I'm reading this book, 2x and 10x. 10x is easier than 2x. It talks about, having to get rid of like 80% of things. There's just that hard grind that's incremental, that is not bringing out your true essence. And when you focus and you find that 20% that is you, where you bring the most value, where you bring your truth, that's where you're going to get that growth. You're going to get those big leaps, and you're really going to feel good about who you are. And you can double down on that a lot easier. And a lot of that letting go of that 80% is hard. The attachments is who we've become to know. And maybe at one point that was your 20%, and it's taking up 80% of your time, and you want to really cling to it. And for me, like I mentioned earlier, like setting some boundaries, being able to say no, um, believing enough in myself to know that things are going to be okay. And as I'm questioning myself over these last couple of weeks, and also connecting with other people who are sharing, they're feeling the same thing. People who are doing really well on the outside, they're feeling the same sort of thing. Or some people who are just been struggling for a while, they're feeling the same sort of thing. And I think collectively, we're being pushed to evolve. That's where all the fear comes from. That's where all of the darkness and the shadows, it's this evolutionary force that pushes us to dig deeper. And it reminded me of where I was like 5 years ago when I opened Elemental. I took on these big bank loans, and we had all of these regrets, and it was too early and not the right space, and blah blah blah. And I've talked about this many times before, and all the things that came out of it that are so instrumental into the life I live right now. I was feeling it again. And I had this dream, so crazy. And in the dream, someone was talking to me. I don't know if it was God or my higher self or whatever, but I'm hearing this voice, It's bringing me back to 5 years ago when I was going through all that hard times and I was not sleeping and I was stressed because I was worrying about all these potential outcomes that were the worst case scenarios because I was stressed, I wasn't sleeping, I was overworked, I was burnt out. And I was looking at what happens if I go bankrupt? What happens if I lose my business? What happens if I lose my house? What's going to happen to my family? Blah, 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 blah. And in this dream, this voice comes. Remember that fear? Did it happen? No. Remember this fear? Did that happen? No. I started going through all these fears I had, very specific. And I was feeling the same feelings. I was like, no, none of them happened. What happened was it pushed you to a point of surrender where you said, okay, like all these things could happen. I want to go back in time. I want to change it, but I can't. And now I'm just going to have to work through it. And over time, all these beautiful things blossomed out of that fear and uncertainty. And it was uncomfortable, but it was necessary. And so ask yourself, am I going through this necessary discomfort for something greater, for myself and for humanity at large? And so after that reminder, I was okay, like what's going to help the problem and what's going to make it worse? And obviously the avoidance makes it worse. And the things you do when you're feeling stressed to eat poorly, drink alcohol, distract yourself with whatever. And I was, like I said, I was drink a lot of coffee, and on the weekends I'd be, out and socializing, maybe having a couple of drinks or whatever, staying up late. It's okay. I need to make a commitment to myself first. And so stop drinking coffee, no more stimulants, stop drinking any form of alcohol, which I wasn't drinking much anyways, maybe a couple of beers here and there. I like beer, especially in the summertime. Cut that out and really started focusing on my sleep. Going to sleep early. What's my bedtime routine like? How do I wind down? Taking magnesium supplements, which was huge because when you're stressed, you deplete magnesium. I started getting like these little muscle cramps and tension, and that's usually a sign of lack of magnesium deficiency or something like that. Not a lack of magnesium deficiency, being deficient in magnesium. We're taking magnesium, and then I did a juice cleanse. So 3 days of just juice, just really cleared the system out. And that's when I cut coffee at the same time. It was hard. I felt this lightness. As I'm catching up on sleep and just feeling very rested, the nervous system is going down. Breath work, ice bath in the morning, sauna at night, really just connecting. I started witnessing, my thoughts. Fear would come up about like, oh, the ice bath's gonna go down. So wait a minute, you can't control that. And when it does, I'll deal with it. So why am I worrying about it? Or something with business about something going wrong. It's like, okay, like that might happen, but don't worry about it. And because I'm doing so many things at the same time, it's really hard because my mind is to jump from like one business to the next. Thinking about breath work and facilitation and upcoming and a house in Costa Rica and blah blah blah. And so having these pauses where it's like, okay, when you feel your mind going, just take a step back and just let it settle and just observe it. Okay, what's going on here? And after a week of kind of really just going back to what I knew, it's like take these pauses, observe your thoughts, but put yourself in the environment where you're not going to add this extra stress. This deep sense of peace started coming in, and with the peace comes clarity. When you don't have peace and you're kind of in the kind of like freak out zone, you can't have clarity. You can't see beyond your current situation. You're just trying to put out fires. And although the future isn't clear in a sense of knowing exactly what I need to do, there is this sense of calm and trust and like, yeah, you're already doing exactly what you need to do. Follow your intuition more. You don't need to do more. You have to simplify. And I realized, wow, man, that's also my gene keys is simplicity. And part of it was like, hey, you need to make more complex trainings and you need to go deeper into science and all these things that you're seeing other people do, but that's not me, and finding out what I was. I'm like, yeah, I like to simplify things, make them easy to grasp, easy to understand, easy to kind of do in a way that, I can explain it in a way that people can understand it. And that was kind of like one of my gifts was like taking something complex and making it simple, cutting out a lot of fluff and making it practical. And it's like, okay, so focus on that. You don't have to be all these other things that you think you need to be because everyone else is doing it. Comparison, how often do we compare ourselves to others? And that's probably where most of the suffering comes from, is this comparison of wanting other things. And, sometimes we don't acknowledge all of the great things we've done in our lives because we're so looking outward. But take a step back and like, what are all the things you've done in the last year? What are all the leaps and bounds you've made, whether it's around health or relationships or work, you know, and honor yourself for that. And I look back, it's like, you know what? Yeah, I've gone through a lot in the last couple of years, a lot of transition, obviously mistakes. And every time you make a mistake, it's like, okay, what did I really learn? You know, because whatever doesn't kill you can make you stronger if you can find the gift in it. So looking at that stuff, I said, okay. And one of the things I thought was like doing more and doing all these things is going to be better, but it's not. And so it's really find that 20% to focus in on and really do well at that in my own way, or find a way that feels good. And, part of this misconception is like everything you do, you have to scale and make it huge. Well, me, an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. Yeah, we're going to, breath work, we're going to have 100,000 facilitators and blah, blah, blah. And like just felt heavy and stressful. It's like, oh man, I just want this to be fun. I want this to feel good. And I want it to be simple. I want my life to be simpler. And when I started putting that energy into it, the clarity would come. Here's how you do that. You don't have to have 500 audio tracks. You don't have to have, this crazy online, presence and blah, blah, blah. It's like, just share your truth, share from the heart, make it simple, and focus on that simplicity and do really good at that. Right? So how can that apply to your life? How do you simplify complexity and focus on something you can do really well? The problem is I have like this crazy ADD where I'm, jumping, new opportunities are coming. What I found was the opportunity was like based on this one, like, yeah, I wanted to help people and I wanted them to recognize me. I want to feel like I'm needed and all these kind of things. But it was a lie again. It's like, no, don't be afraid of just being yourself and doing your thing and being really good at it and being able to say no. Like, hey, like we can't be everything to everyone. You gotta focus on your thing, believe in it, do it well, do it right. And it's going to be whatever it needs to be. And just trust in that. And it's going to lead you wherever you need to go in this life. And so that brought a deeper sense of calm and peace. And, still a lot of turbulence and things that are loose ends that are trying to wrap up with our physical space, elemental, which we're trying to kind of like figure out what are we going to do with it. This beautiful community space kind of got abandoned for a couple of years in COVID when I went to Costa Rica. But there's this essence there and there's these people that want to be a part of it. So we're trying to like create something new. And obviously, this impatience is like, jump on it, do it now, let's make it happen. It's like, no, like really, like a baby takes 9 months to be born. It's that patience, that nurturing. It's like, okay, we need to let it be what it needs to be. You can't have a baby, no matter how bad you want to have it, you can't make it come out in 3 months. It takes its time. And when it's ready, it's going to be born. Sometimes a little bit late, sometimes a little bit early, but it's going to be around that time. And so whatever you're birthing in your life, give it that focus and that nurture and that intention. Like, why are we doing this? What is the reason behind it? And how do we bring that message through? Beyond the words and the communications, how do you bring that message of what you're creating into your life? And how do you share it? Through your actions, through your creativity, through your words, through just being. Maybe it's through not doing anything at all and just allowing it to be what it needs to be. Maybe it's something that's for yourself that you don't need to share. But I think we're ultimately all being asked this question right now is like, who are you? What are you doing here? What's that line you're going to write in this book, in the history of life? What is your line that you're going to contribute to what's happening, this evolution that's happening right now? Because there is an evolution happening, and it's accelerating. And I think just that peaceful observation and presence and contribution to something that is good and better is what we're all being called to do right now. So if you're feeling this call, like, something is off and I don't know what to do, it's like, really got to sit with that. Really got to sit with that contemplative state, which is not meditative, which is, shutting out the voice. And it's not concentrating, it's really focusing on it. It's just like having that pause, that in between, just like thinking about, feeling into it, observing, like what am I supposed to be doing here? And acting from that place of groundedness and strength and stability versus reactive and like trying to like go crazy, because the world's trying to make you go crazy right now. Whether it's intentional or not, there's this energy that's about change. And this duality is forcing, people out of fear. And like I'm telling you, I think the biggest controllers in the world are afraid right now that they're losing control. What they're trying to do, they're pushing real hard. to create chaos, to create control, to make us want to ask for help. And it made it a lot harder. But our humanity is at stake here. And can we come together and say, like, hey, like, we don't need that. We can live in peace and harmony. So I think we're just feeling that process of getting there. We're in it right now, of this evolution. And it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling and to not be sure. But looking outward for answers and looking at others is not the answer either. It's looking within, how we want to show up. What's the role I want to play in this life, in humanity, in this story that's being scripted. And to be open to whatever comes next, but to welcome it and not to be afraid of it. To really welcome this transition we're going through with open arms and open hearts. So if this resonates with you, you're not alone if you're feeling that. And so many people have reached out. They're feeling something similar. It's like, oh, what's going on? Transition, change, transmutation, transformation. And it usually comes from this place of, I don't like the word suffering, but yeah, suffering. Whether it's self-inflicted or whatever, it's this feeling of discomfort, which is trying to move you out of that 80% comfort. Get more aligned with what you're supposed to be, or who you're supposed to be, and how you're supposed to show up. Okay, that's all I got. Giocast 27. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please follow, connect, shoot me a message. Love you guys. Peace.